It is February 16, 2025, and the other night at a meeting of the West Price Hill Community Council, we got our normal stat report from our liaison officer, Kroger. And he usually he provides the STAR report that we talked about before, and he appends to the STARS report some cases that occurred or some crimes that occurred in the neighborhood in the previous month or so. And I think he just pulls them out. I don't think this is exhaustive of the crimes that occurred in the neighborhood, but these are so many that he highlights. And there were this was in a 1 month period, of 4 aggravated robberies, 1 murder, and 3 felonious assaults, and all within, a couple miles of my house, some even closer. There was a felonious assault on Glenway, aggravated robbery on Ross, aggravated robbery on Westmont, murder on Seibel, aggravated robbery on Glenway, felonious assault on Relium, felonious assault on Warsaw, felonious assault on Weeman, and aggravated robbery on Glenway. And there's 2 of those Glenways. It's the same location. It's at Walgreens at Sunset and Glenway. So this is the experience we're living here in West Price Hill. And then you go to the city during this spree of crimes up here. You go to the city, and on January 22nd, they issued their solution. They issued their Act for Cincy plan. And ACT stands for Achieving Change Together. And they describe it as a holistic approach to reducing violence or gun violence or something like that. And it actually seems like instead of reducing crime or reducing gun violence or whatnot, it actually comes across as doing things to help us survive or tolerate or live with the crime that occurs in our area. And maybe, if we're lucky, a couple of these programs will help reduce crime. And one thing that, and you should go online and look at this. It's 51 pages long. 16 of those pages are just list all these nonprofits that are getting money. So that's 16 pages. And then there's a lot of photos and a couple of graphs, one of which it is so crazy that if somebody had submitted this report for my approval, they would be in big trouble. You can't even understand it. I don't even know if you can see this thing, but that was in the report. It's like, what is this? It's called a causal loop diagram. But I'm not saying the report's terrible or the plan is terrible. There's probably some good things that are in there, but there's a lot of things in there that aren't so good and are probably a big waste of money. And in one case, we don't really know what's happening with that money or what it's going for. There's 3 funds that I identified. There was the Human Services Violence Prevention Fund, and then there was the Boots on the Ground Fund, and one more. I can't remember the name of it, but they all have to do with Act for Cincy. These are different buckets of money that will be spent by these nonprofits under the umbrella, they're calling it, of Act for Cincy. But the biggest pot of money is this Human Services Violence Prevention Fund. You can find the other 2 in the budget. I can't find that one in the budget. And I think what happened is there is a contract that they report with United Way The United Way has a contract for $8.55 million under City Human Services Fund administered by United Way. So I don't really know what all that involves, but I would not be surprised if this 1.5 million for the fund for Act for Cincy wasn't buried in there somewhere. It would be interesting to get all those contracts that the United Way or all the recipients of money, but that's a different issue. So the Act for Cincy plan, like I said, it's not law enforcement. So if you were expecting increased law enforcement or an increased law enforcement strategy, you're not going to see that. And that's why a big question I have is what happened to the collaborative agreement? I guess that didn't work, or it ended so long ago that it's worn off. So we've got to take a different approach. Who knows what happened to it? But the last information on the city's, the police department's website concerning the collaborative agreement is in 2020. And between the time it was agreed to in 2002 up until at least 2017, when you read about the collaborative agreement, all you hear or all you read is how great it was and what fantastic results we got and all the rest of that. And what happened to it? I guess maybe it's just baked in now to the police department procedures or something like that. But maybe they ought to go back to the collaborative agreement if it was so successful and replicate whatever they did under the collaborative agreement. It was very, very good, apparently. So there's a lot to unpack here. But there's a big difference between the collaborative agreement and the Act for Cincy. The collaborative agreement is highly police, law enforcement oriented. And Act for Cincy is social welfare, social justice, etc. So, like I said, it's a different kettle of fish. There are some similarities or some connection between the collaborative agreement and Act for Cincy. The most notable one is that the same members of the community who were pushing the collaborative agreement are the same people that are behind Act for Cincy. It's very prominent. And the difference is, or one difference is, that the people who were behind the collaborative agreement will be getting a lot more money under Act for Cincy. That $2.3 million and who it's going to and what those people are doing with it, I have no idea how the city's going to keep track of that. They've got, not only do they have these 52 nonprofits getting money, but they also have something called leverage support groups, and they also have something that are called programmatic contracts or something like that. But there's another 45 other organizations, nonprofits, etc., that are getting money under the leverage support group. How in the world are they keeping track of all this? It is just very, very high risk. Anyway, so we've got to dig into the collaborative agreement a little bit for those who don't understand, and we are going to dig into this leverage support process or aspect of the budget. Also, that's very, very problematic. The relationship between the city council and these leverage support organizations. So we're going to dig into that a little bit. So until that time, I would go online and look at this Act for Cincy report, and you'll see what I'm saying.